The date is February 27th of 1943. It's the peak of World War II and everything is falling to chaos. Countries are war-torn. Spaces that were once for community are now places to tear families away from each other. All around is violence and wreckage. Germany and the Allies still wage war. Bombs and gunfire and fights. But in Berlin, something special is brewing. Something revolutionary. There are so many tales about heroes of World War II, but in the center of Berlin, on a very special street, there are heroes with an unsung story. Who would these people be?
1943 Rosenstrasse, a reaction against the unjust.
The peak of World War II is now, and the end of the war could be seen in the distance. Germany was under the rule of dictator and fascist Adolf Hitler. The Allies were gaining power, and Germany and its allies were losing. The Sixth Army had east had fallen, the front had caved. The gains of all the previous years were slowly falling from the hands of Germany. Italy, one of Germany's main allies, was speaking of a peace deal to back out of the war. In North America, the end could be seen so closely.
Meine Arbeit für richtig hältst, ob du glaubst, dass ich fleißig gewesen bin, dass ich gearbeitet habe, dass ich mich in diesen Jahren für dich eingesetzt habe, dass ich anständig meine Zeit verwendet habe im Dienste meines Volkes. Gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
When Hitler came into power, he promised so much to Germany, but all these issues he was claiming to fix, he blamed on the Jews. Yet Hitler pushed on, and many aimed to please him, one of these such people being Joseph Goebbels. At the time, Goebbels was in charge of all the propaganda the Nazi Party put out. Every single thing on the radio or a flyer in the streets, he was responsible for. His official title being named the Minister of Propaganda, even if he did more than just propaganda. Hitler's birthday was coming up, and Goebbels had sworn to him that Germany would be quote-unquote Jew-free before his birthday. The majority of the Jewish population had already been killed or stolen away to the concentration camps. The only population left were the Jews who had been promised safety due to their marital status or because they were half Aryan, a product of mixed marriages. Others included, often named Mischling, were people who had Jewish grandparents. He claimed that this roundup would be for Hitler's birthday and would be the final of its kind.
The Jews in Berlin will now and once and for all be pushed out, with the final deadline of February 28th. They are supposed to be first collected in camps and then deported, up to 2,000, batch by batch, day by day. I set for myself a goal to make Berlin entirely free of Jews by the middle or end of March at the latest. Goebbels' diary, February 18, 1943. So the day came for the roundups. Many Jewish men were at work in factories or coming home. The trucks came and stopped them. Much unlike the previous roundups, there was no prep or previous word of this roundup. The men were unprepared, but most did not fight back. It happened so often before that they knew what their fate was. The men taken were sent to a building on Rosenstrasse, named Rose Street in English. It used to be a place of community, but now is treated as a holding cell. It used to be a Jewish community center specifically, but was now strictly used by SS and Gestapo. Around 2,000 men were taken, and their fate was sealed away. This final action was called the factory action, due to the fact that men were taken directly from their workplaces. The men taken were sent to concentration camps, or otherwise known as death camps. There were no beds and very few spots to sit for 2,000 men crammed into a couple small rooms. Both young and old men were taken. But what if the narrative could be spun? What if families could stop their own families from being sent at all? What if the jar sealed their fate could be cracked open? The family members of these Jews thought similarly. The top number of protesters for the Rosenstrasse protest was 6,000. They gathered in the Rosenstrasse of Berlin and protested against this roundup. The protest lasted about a week. Many were scared, but the numbers of people protesting stayed consistent and didn't dwindle in the face of threats. They came out daily. The Gestapo, German secret police, constantly threatened to shoot the crowd of protesters. The Rosenstrasse protest took place in Berlin after rules for Jewish people had been changed. Nothing in the past had been done about the roundups in fear of being reprimanded. On this very date, February 27th, 1943, Women gathered to do something truly revolutionary, what now may seem like a natural reaction to an unjust rule many were too afraid to do before. After word caught on of a small roundup, families were distraught. Children and women left alone. Nobody expected an uprising, but this is exactly what was given: a revolution.
Passierte es, dass die Mischlinge, also ich, verhaftet wurden und alle gemeinsam in ein Lager kamen am Zürich. Und da standen vor diesem Lager in der Rosenstrasse mitten im Zentrum der Stadt Berlin Hunderte, ich sag nicht Tausende, aber insgesamt waren es Tausende. Denn die standen tagelang, die Frauen standen, meine Tanten standen untergefasst, so gebt uns einer gibt uns unsere Kinder. Und es wurde nicht geschossen. Und es kamen keine Wasserwerfer. Sie bekamen uns frei.
From the safe shelters of their home, thousands of women came marching to the center of Berlin onto the Rosenstrasse, almost like an army. They chanted repeatedly, "Give us our husbands back. Give us our children back." Something so unseen before was happening now. From February 27th to March 6th, up to 6,000 women protested against Hitler and his unfair rules. This large reaction caught attention. Alone, the women were already a large group. By March 6th, people who had no relations inside the building were protesting alongside. The people who had no relations came to protest against Hitler. It was a reaction, a big one. Rosenstrasse was catching fire to the dismay of the leaders. It became a movement against Nazis and the unjust. What started simply as chanting for their family back turned into a garish movement. The women hadn't planned this. They hadn't planned to cause such a ruckus and a change. They just wanted what was previously promised to them. Leaders were left in dismay. Who knew what started as begging family members back would turn into this? When confronted about it, leaders, mostly Joseph Goebbels, did not know what to do. These women yelling in the street, they had no organizer. This reaction was unplanned, simply many people with the same idea. What could they do to them? They weren't Jewish, and they had the numbers on their side. If they fired onto them, word would catch on that SS officers were killing non-Jewish women now. Nothing like this had ever been done before. It truly was revolutionary. Joseph Goebbels was stuck in a rough spot. What was he meant to do? If he killed the women, the Nazis would likely lose support. But if he let the protests continue, it would only get bigger. Word had already sparked and was catching fire. If he sent the men away and the women saw, word would only get bigger. How could he please Hitler at the same time as not causing an uproar? The answer was that he couldn't. The non-Jewish women had backed him into a corner. Over the week of the protests, Goebbels consulted others, and there was no other solutions, other than the ones that were already provided. He could kill the women, ignore them and send the men away, or listen to them. Tossing and turning, he finally made his choice. To the hard avail of the working women, it was eventually successful, and the protesters gained their family members back once again. Around 2,000 men were granted their civil lives back to their families because of the protest. The women got their small reform through their stubborn reaction. People like Gad Beck, Fritz Gluckstein, and Rita Kuhn were all freed and given their lives back. They were given another chance at life through this revolution. People during this protest did not fall weak under the foot of Hitler. Instead, they took a stand and fought. They reacted largely and sparked all different reactions in places around Berlin for minorities facing brutality. From food stamps to human rights, the protest helped spark it in the peak of Nazi Germany, like a flower growing from ashes. Wherever this news spread of protesters fighting non-violently and actually winning, the idea of power was revolutionized. While discrimination still lurks in the pockets of the world today, it can inspire civilians to be used as an example of what happens when we take a stand together. The 1943 Rosenstrasse protest grew the idea that ordinary citizens can in fact challenge and succeed oppressive regimens.